All right, let's talk about something we don't really talk about, Not out loud anyway. We're going to get into the story of debt.
I think you know the one I'm talking about.
It's that moment when the house is still and, the rest of the world is just quiet. It's almost this nervous habit, right? Just a quick check. And then you see it, that number, the one that doesn't seem to change, just staring back at you from the screen.
And that feeling that washes over you in that instant, it's not about accounting, is it? It feels deeply personal.
It's that quiet, sinking feeling of failure. And look, the most important thing for you to understand is this. That feeling, it did not get there by accident.
So this first section, we're calling it a feeling of failure. And that's because the story of debt, for most of us, it doesn't really start with banks or interest rates. No, it starts with shame.
I mean, have you ever heard someone say this? Responsible people pay their debts. Just listen to that word, responsible. It immediately frames the whole thing not as a circumstance, but as a direct judgment on your character.
And all the language we use around debt does this. Think about it. You owe something. You're in the red. You've fallen behind. Every single one of those phrases suggests that if you have debt, you are somehow less than.
And that's the really strange paradox here, isn't it? I mean, pretty much everyone has some form of debt, for school, a house, a car, sometimes just for living. And yet, it's still one of the last great taboos. We just live in silence with it. Okay, so that brings us right to our next section, the price of a number. Because this is all about how debt changes so much more than just your bank account. Yeah, this is where it gets really, really personal. When you carry a lot of debt, your whole perception of time just changes. That big horizon of the future, it starts to pull in closer and closer until you're not thinking in years anymore, or even months. You're just thinking in payments, in deadlines, in due dates. And the questions you ask yourself, they start to shift too. That big, expansive, hopeful question, what do I want out of life? Well, that gets replaced by a much tighter, more pragmatic question. What can I afford just to survive? Because see, what debt truly costs you isn't just money. It's permission. It actually takes away your permission to rest. Your permission to take a risk and maybe fail. Your permission to just change your mind. Your whole life slowly turns into this kind of maintenance mode. All right, on to our third section here, an invisible system. And look, this is where things might get a little uncomfortable. Because this whole story we tell ourselves, the one about debt being a moral failure, yeah, that wasn't always the story.
You see, for most of history, debt was just a practical problem. A bad harvest happened. A storm wrecked your boat. It was something that happened to you. But now, now it's a moral story. It's all about your personal virtue, your discipline, your very worth as a person.
This is the modern story we are sold, day in and day out. If you owe, you just didn't try hard enough. Just let that sink in for a second. That is not an economic statement. That is judgment, pure and simple. And here is the quiet little trick behind that judgment, and it is incredibly effective. Because if your debt is entirely your fault, well then the system can never be at fault, can it? The system is innocent.
And just like that, boom, with the focus entirely on you, all the bigger pieces of the puzzle just vanish. Stagnant wages? Gone. The skyrocketing cost of housing and healthcare? Poof, they disappear. All that's left in the room is you and this story of your personal failure. Your debt then gets held up as proof. Proof not that the game itself might be rigged, but that you personally failed to play it well enough. And when people truly believe that about themselves, well, control becomes pretty much effortless.
So this all leads us to our final section, which is changing the story. I just want you to imagine something different for a minute. Just, what if debt could exist without all the shame?
I mean, what would actually change? Well, for one, people would ask for help a whole lot sooner. They'd talk about it openly with each other. They might even organize and start to push back against the very things that create debt in the first place, which of course is exactly why shame is such a useful, powerful tool to keep attached to it. Because this is the real story here. Debt has become about so much more than just owing money. It's become about owing a certain kind of behavior. It's about owing your obedience. And it's about owing your silence. So the next time you feel that heavy late-night weight, try asking a different question. Instead of asking, what did I do wrong? I want you to ask yourself this: who benefits from me feeling this way? Because look, the debt is real, the numbers on the screen are real, but the shame, that part was added. Quietly and on purpose.